Suzanna Fay, who kindly joins me from Brisbane in Australia. She's a senior lecturer in criminology at the University of Queensland. Welcome to you, Suzanna. I mean, it's a sensitive issue at the moment, but the government has very quickly made a move to say that this attack, straight off, we think it's because the gun laws aren't tight enough, and they've moved to tighten them. So what's your assessment of the existing gun laws in Australia? Are they good enough?
So I think, as you know, Australia's had a long history with what's considered to be very tough gun laws after the Port Arthur shooting in 1996. I think that what's being proposed is something that is been talked about here in Australia, not just as a result of this incident. So, for example, the two proposals that have been put forward by government as a result in the last 24 hours is to limit the number of firearms. That is a consistent difference with particularly the kinds of firearms that we think have been used in this incident, where in New South Wales, where this incident took place, there has not been a cap on the number on those firearms. There has been one state that has put a cap on the number of firearms, and that is in Western Australia, and there's been calls for other states to follow suit. That being said, the current gun laws in New South Wales, as well as for most of the states and territories in Australia, have very, very strict procedures. So it first begins with a application for a license, where someone must pass a background check and pass a test where they have to represent themselves as good and fit to be a firearms owner. They have to be able to commit to particular storage laws. And then when they want to actually purchase a firearm, that also requires them to get an additional permit. Now, that first permit would also require them to have a 28-day waiting period for their first firearm. So the restrictions are already very tough. I do think it's very natural, however, after an incident like this, for us to take a look at potentially where some of those may have fallen down. And I think that's what the government is trying to do.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think optics plays part of it. I mean, gun critics will say, though, if there are guns out there in the community, you're never safe. It's the easiest thing in the world is to lie about your reasons for wanting a gun, and then you can use them for, for nefarious reasons at a later stage. So do you think even these tighter laws are actually going to prevent attacks like this in the future?
Well, I think there's two things that I want to say about that in particular. I think one of the things that's really beneficial about Australia's current gun laws is that genuine reason requires proof. And yes, there are often loopholes around lots of different kinds of legislation that requires compliance. Gun laws are no exception to that. But I think that one of the things that has been really beneficial are things like requiring particular kinds of proof for hunting, where you are carrying out that hunting, making sure that you are a member of a gun club or a shooting club that would make sure that you are part of the gun-owning community, where they can monitor and mentor and make sure that there are checks on responsible behaviour. So I think that makes the lying about a potential genuine reason less likely, although, of course, there are always possibilities. I think also what's really important to think about is that there are legitimate reasons for owning a firearm. There is a big farming culture here in Australia. Those have been considered tools that are necessary for those kinds of for those kinds of jobs. So I think that there is always going to be legitimate firearms use in the context of Australia as well as other countries.
Suzanna, some really interesting points you made there. Thanks so much for coming on. Suzanna Fay is a senior lecturer in criminology at the University of Queensland, and also, very appropriately, the author of Gun Control in Context. Thank you.